You walk into a brand new house that costs $500,000. The floors gleam under LED lights. The kitchen island stretches like a marble altar. Everything looks perfect on Instagram. Then you notice the vinyl plank flooring has a bubble near the sliding door. The kitchen faucet wobbles when you turn it. One of the bedroom windows already has condensation trapped between the glass panes, creating a permanent fog that makes you feel like you're looking through a dirty fishbowl. The house is 18 months old. You think this is bad luck, maybe a few isolated problems. But drive through any subdivision built after 2000 and you'll start seeing the same issues everywhere. Peeling, siding, cracked driveways, roofs that look worn after a decade. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't shoddy workmanship by a few bad contractors. This is the logical outcome of a housing system that makes more money when your house falls apart. The real estate industry, mortgage lenders, and building product manufacturers have quietly adopted a business model that benefits from turnover, replacement cycles, and constant renovation. They've created a version of planned obsolescence for the largest purchase most people will ever make. And they've done it while convincing you that a house is a safe, long-term investment that will appreciate in value and shelter your family for decades. What you're actually buying is more like a very expensive car that looks impressive at the dealership but starts falling apart the moment you drive it home. The only difference is that nobody told you the warranty expires in 10 years and the repairs will cost more than your annual salary. Consider what happens when you buy a house built with modern materials and methods. The lumber comes from plantation-grown trees harvested in 20-year cycles instead of old-growth timber that took a century to mature. Plantation timber is less dense, more prone to warping, and rots faster than the tight-grained wood used in houses built before 1980. Your floor joists are probably engineered I-beams made of oriented strand board and thin wood flanges, designed to meet building codes at the lowest possible cost. The subfloor underneath your feet is more OSB, which swells permanently when it gets wet and can't be sanded smooth again like plywood. That beautiful luxury vinyl plank flooring that sold you on the house cannot be refinished, ever. When it scratches or wears through, you rip it up and throw it away. Compare that to the solid hardwood floors in older homes, which can be sanded and refinished 8 or 10 times over the course of a century. Your plumbing system uses cross-linked polyethylene tubing that's cheaper and faster to install than copper. But mice can chew through it, and nobody really knows how long it lasts because it's only been widely used for about 20 years. The copper pipes 70 years later. Your windows have insulated glass units with thermal seals that will fail in 15 to 20 years, creating that permanent fog between the panes. When that happens, you can't just replace the glass like you could with an old wood-framed window. You have to throw away the entire vinyl window assembly and buy a new one. Even your roof, which looks solid and permanent, is probably designed with a shorter lifespan than your 30-year mortgage. But here's where it gets really twisted. None of this is reflected in how houses are priced, appraised, or financed. I'm Kevin, and I've been documenting how American cities were built to extract maximum profit from residents while delivering minimum long-term value. If you're tired of feeling like everything about housing is rigged against you, subscribe to see how deep this goes. Because what I'm about to show you will change how you think about the biggest financial decision most people ever make. Mortgage lenders base your loan on the appraised value of the house at the time of purchase. That appraisal compares your house to similar houses that sold recently in your area. It doesn't factor in whether your materials will last 5 years or 50 years. It doesn't reward builders who use copper pipes instead of plastic, solid hardwood instead of vinyl, or brick instead of fiber cement siding. Banks don't offer better interest rates for houses built with durable materials. They don't even have a category for that in their underwriting software. This creates a race to the bottom in construction quality. Production home builders like D, R, Horton, Lennar, and PulteGroup operate on profit margins of 8 to 15%. They're competing primarily on price, especially for first-time buyers and middle-income families. Every dollar they spend on better materials is a dollar that comes out of their profits, unless buyers are willing to pay more upfront for durability. But buyers can't see the difference between 30-year copper pipes and 30-year plastic pipes. They can't tell which windows will fog up in 10 years and which will stay clear for decades. They're making decisions based on curb appeal, square footage, and monthly payment amounts. The appraisal system reinforces this cycle by treating surface-level aesthetics as the primary measure of value. A house with trendy gray luxury vinyl plank flooring and stainless steel appliances will appraise higher than the same house with older but restorable hardwood floors and a working but dated kitchen. The appraiser isn't calculating that the luxury vinyl will need complete replacement in 15 years, while the hardwood floors could be refinished for a fraction of the cost. Building codes make this worse by focusing almost entirely on energy efficiency, structural safety, and fire protection. Modern codes require better insulation, tighter air sealing, and more efficient heating and cooling systems. These are good goals, but they're achieved without much consideration for moisture management or long-term durability. A house can meet all current building codes while being built with materials that will start failing within a decade. The energy efficiency requirements actually create new risks for shorter building lifespans. When you wrap a house in continuous insulation and seal it tight to prevent air leaks, moisture that gets into the wall assembly has fewer ways to dry out. If builders make mistakes with flashing, vapor barriers, or drainage details, that trapped moisture can rot the wood framing faster than it would have in a leakier older house. The building envelope becomes more sophisticated, but it also becomes less forgiving of construction errors. Meanwhile, consumer expectations have been shaped by HGTV and social media to prioritize visual trends over structural quality. Open floor plans, subway tile backsplashes, and farmhouse sinks sell houses. Buyers tour homes, taking pictures for Instagram, not examining the plumbing connections, or checking whether the roof has adequate overhangs to shed water away from the foundation. Real estate agents emphasize granite countertops and walk-in showers, not whether the windows are built to last or the siding is properly flashed. This aesthetic focus extends to the renovation and flipping culture that treats houses as short-term investments rather than long-term shelter. The average American moves every 7 years. Many homeowners buy with the explicit intention of renovating and reselling within 5 to 10 years. This timeline encourages cosmetic upgrades that photograph well and discourages investments in structural improvements or high-quality materials that pay off over decades rather than years. And here's the catch that makes this system so perverse. While houses are being built with shorter lifespans, they're still being financed and priced as if they're long-term appreciating assets. Your 30-year mortgage assumes the house will retain or increase its value over 3 decades. Homeownership is marketed as a wealth-building strategy, a hedge against inflation, and a way to build intergenerational equity. But if your house needs a new roof, windows, flooring, and HVAC system within 20 years, where does that leave your financial plan? Japan solved this contradiction by being honest about it. Japanese houses are built as depreciating assets with expected lifespans of 20 to 30 years. The land holds value, but the structure is assumed to be worthless after a few decades. Buyers plan for eventual demolition and rebuilding rather than renovation and maintenance. It's a sustainable model because everyone understands the deal up front. American housing has drifted toward the Japanese model in terms of actual durability, while maintaining the fiction that houses are permanent assets. We get the worst of both systems: shorter lifespans with long-term pricing. Homeowners absorb the risk of component failures and replacement costs, while lenders, builders, and material manufacturers profit from the constant cycle of turnover. The building product industry has perfected this model across every category of materials. Flooring manufacturers make more money selling vinyl planks every 15 years than selling hardwood once every 50 years. Window companies prefer products that require full replacement over products that can be repaired. Plumbing manufacturers benefit when pipes need replacement rather than lasting multiple generations. None of these companies explicitly design their products to fail quickly, but they've optimized for upfront cost, ease of installation, and visual appeal rather than longevity and repairability. The market rewards these choices because the financial system doesn't price in lifecycle costs. A builder who uses premium materials faces higher upfront costs without being able to charge proportionally higher prices, while the homeowner who benefits from those materials won't see the payoff for years or decades. The system becomes even more twisted when you consider the environmental impact. Shorter building lifespans mean more construction waste, more resource extraction, and more embodied carbon emissions from manufacturing replacement materials. A vinyl window that lasts 15 years creates more environmental impact over 60 years than a wood window that lasts 60 years, even accounting for periodic maintenance and refinishing. But the costs aren't borne by the companies profiting from this cycle. They're externalized to homeowners who face unexpected replacement expenses, to municipalities dealing with construction waste, and to the environment absorbing the impact of constant material turnover. This is why people say they don't build them like they used to with such frustration. It's not nostalgia or rose-colored glasses. Houses built before 1980 were constructed with old-growth lumber, solid hardwood floors, copper pipes, cast iron waistlines, and windows designed to be maintained rather than replaced. Many of these components are still functioning 70 or 80 years later. A house built today with modern materials and methods will require multiple major component replacements before it reaches that age. The tragic part is that we know how to build durable houses. The materials exist, the techniques are proven, and the building science is well understood. Brick lasts centuries. Slate roofs outlive the buildings they cover. Solid timber framing can stand for hundreds of years with proper maintenance. Copper pipes and cast iron drainage systems serve multiple generations of families, but our financial and regulatory systems actively discourage builders from using these materials and methods. The upfront cost penalty is immediate and measurable. The durability premium takes decades to realize and benefits future owners rather than current builders. In a market driven by quarterly profits and 7-year ownership cycles, long-term thinking becomes economically irrational. The solution isn't to go back to 1,950 seconds construction methods, but to align our financial incentives with our stated goals of homeownership as wealth building. Mortgage rates could reflect expected maintenance costs. Appraisals could factor in material quality and expected component lifespans. Building codes could include durability standards alongside energy and safety requirements. Tax policy could reward renovation of existing housing over demolition and new construction. Some of these changes are starting to happen in markets where housing costs have become so extreme that durability becomes economically important. In expensive coastal cities, homeowners are more likely to invest in high-quality materials because they plan to stay longer and the home values justify the premium. But in moderate-cost markets where most Americans live, the race to the bottom continues because the short-term financial incentives haven't changed. The financialization of single-family housing through institutional rental companies adds another layer to this problem. Companies like Invitation Homes and American Homes for Rent buy thousands of houses to rent out rather than sell. These companies care about cash flow from rent payments, not long-term asset appreciation. They benefit from cheap initial construction costs and can pass maintenance headaches on to tenants. When your landlord is a private equity firm, durability becomes even less important than visual appeal and efficient property management. Understanding this system changes how you think about housing decisions. If you're buying a house built in the last 20 years, budget for major component replacements on a timeline that your inspector and real estate agent probably won't mention. Plan for new flooring in 10 to 15 years, window replacement in 15 to 20 years, and HVAC equipment that might need replacement before your mortgage is paid off. If you're renovating, consider the life cycle cost of materials rather than just the upfront price difference. Solid hardwood flooring costs more initially than luxury vinyl plank, but over 30 years, the hardwood will likely cost less when you factor in replacement and disposal costs. Copper pipes cost more than PEX, but they've proven durable for decades longer. Most importantly, recognize that this isn't your fault as a homeowner or buyer. You're operating within a system designed to shift long-term costs and risks onto you, while concentrating short-term profits among builders, lenders, and material manufacturers. The companies making these decisions have access to information about product lifespans and failure rates that individual buyers don't. They've structured the market to make durability invisible at the point of sale, while making the consequences your problem later. The housing crisis isn't just about supply and demand or zoning and land use, though those factors matter enormously. It's also about a construction industry that's abandoned the goal of building shelter that lasts and a financial system that doesn't reward long-term thinking. When people say they can't afford housing, they're often responding not just to purchase prices, but to the total cost of ownership over time. A house that requires major component replacement every 10 to 15 years isn't affordable at any purchase price for most middle-income families. Fixing this requires changes to how we finance, appraise, regulate, and tax housing. It requires building product standards that consider service life, not just initial performance. It requires educating buyers about the real cost of ownership and the trade-offs between different materials and construction methods. Most of all, it requires admitting that we've created a system that works well for everyone except the people who who actually have to live in the houses. The materials, techniques, and knowledge to build durable housing exist today. What we lack is a market structure that rewards builders for using them and protects buyers from bearing all the risk of premature failures. Until those incentives change, American housing will continue drifting toward a model that combines the worst aspects of planned obsolescence with the highest prices in the world. In the end, this is a story about who bears the risk in the housing market and who reaps the rewards. For the past 30 years, we've systematically shifted long-term risks onto homeowners while allowing short-term profits to accrue to builders, lenders, and manufacturers. The results are visible in every subdivision built since 1990, where houses that look impressive at 5 years old start showing serious problems at 15 years old. It's visible in the budgets of middle-income homeowners who thought they were making a safe, long-term investment and instead found themselves paying for constant repairs and replacements. American housing doesn't have to work this way, but changing it requires acknowledging how the current system actually functions rather than how we pretend it works. Houses aren't permanent assets if they're built with impermanent materials. Homeownership isn't wealth building if the maintenance costs exceed the appreciation. And construction quality won't improve until the market starts rewarding builders who prioritize durability over aesthetics and quarterly profits over long-term performance. Thanks for watching. When people complain that modern houses cost too much but fall apart too quickly, they're not being dramatic. They're describing a rational response to a system that's designed exactly that way. If you want to see more videos breaking down how our cities and housing markets actually work versus how they're supposed to work, subscribe and let me know in the comments what topics you'd like me to cover next. Stay safe out there.